Hello and welcome to another edition of Fault Lines. I'm Gauri Dwivedi. This week we tell you all about the military parade of Xi Jinping, why Tiananmen Square is set to change the global world order, from missiles to brotherhood to the spotlight that Xi Jinping and his 25 other world leaders were facing. The next key story on the show on Fault Lines today. Kim's big Beijing power play. Has he now been mainstream? What's the game plan for the North Korean dictator? And lastly, we tell you on the show more about Jordan and why it has come back in terms of the military conscription 34 years later. What's the big threat that's facing Jordan? We tell you all that on Fault Lines. But first up, the big story. Xi Jinping's military parade, once in a decade parade, that is meant to send as much a political message as a military one. It ticked all the right boxes. There were 25 world leaders there standing next to the Chinese president as he inspected the carefully scripted spectacle. The Chinese president was in fact, on top of the Chinese-made limousine, showing Chinese weaponry and Chinese intent to create an alternate world order. Two, what mattered in terms of how much of this is now going to be Trump's own doing is a separate matter. But let's first get you what really stood out as far as this parade is concerned and why it mattered for everyone around the world to take a look. Let's get you those 5 key takeaways that tell you all about the Victory Day parade. First and foremost, in terms of why it mattered, missiles over carriers. This was a strategy that was reshaped as far as China is concerned. There was a lot of focus about the intercontinental ballistic missiles, and it mattered more simply because that area, Tiananmen Square, had the world's largest nuclear stockpile countries. There was China, there was Russia, there was North Korea, which is why missiles is all that mattered. The next key aspect of this, which was that it was the biggest parade, and AI, in fact, played a very key role. This is now as much about technology as it is about weaponry. And weaponry going forward is going to be all about unmanned vehicles, unmanned weapons, where military men will be sitting back on their consoles dictating how the technology-enabled machinery is going to move around. And that was on display here. Next up, the other key aspect of the takeaway here was that drones were there, and however, battlefield proof is something that still remains, simply because China hasn't fought a war in over 2 generations. The last proper war it fought was with the Vietnamese. Since then, it has made huge military strides. Of course, all of that was on display in Tiananmen Square. That included drones as well. That included some of the finest weaponry, but it's still untested on the battlefield. Next up, the other key takeaway. This was really the big aspect of what this meeting and this show of solidarity was all about, which was Xi Jinping flanked by Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un, the North Korean dictator, the Russian autocrat and the Chinese autocrat. And they haven't come together for the last 66 years. This was a spectacle that was last seen in the heat of the Cold War. And that is why that big photo op, that big headline is still one of the key aspects of what the military parade was all about. Next up, lastly, weapons parade also doubled up as far as sales pitch is concerned. Of course, China would be looking to ensure that a large part of these weapons, which will be mass produced, could be sent off to the 25 other countries who had come there to participate. That also included some European countries. It included NATO allies as well, and those who were wanting to be part of the EU as well. In fact, now let's get you in terms of more details as far as what this military parade was all about. There were massive missiles, there were sleek drones, and of course the unmissable thunderous jets that were there. China's Victory Day parade was nothing short of a theatrical display of power. But behind the steel and smoke, are these systems really battle ready? Or were they just military window dressing? That's something the world doesn't know. But from New Delhi's strategic lens, let's get you this reality check that tells you more about these weaponry than just the choreographed spectacle that was on display on Tiananmen Square.
In the heart of Beijing, under Xi Jinping's watchful eye, China unveiled its latest military muscle. 50,000 spectators watched as Xi's war machines thundered to the Tiananmen Square. Hypersonic missiles, AI drones, laser weapons, and enormous undersea drones all rolled out in lockstep. At the front, the DF-61, a massive mobile intercontinental ballistic missile. Reviving a Cold War era designation, this nuclear-capable giant was designed to send a message straight to Washington. Then came the YJ-21, a hypersonic anti-ship missile with unpredictable flight paths, built to outmaneuver naval defenses, on paper at least. Air defense lasers mounted on trucks and warships followed. But lasers in war, still mostly theoretical. Also revealed were the two XL undersea drones, longer than buses, bristling with unknown technology. But the biggest question, do these systems work when it matters? Operation Sindoor gave India the answer. During our precise strikes on Pakistan after the Pahalgam terror attack, Chinese supplied gear deployed by Pakistani forces, drones, jammers, surveillance systems either malfunctioned or were neutralized with ease. The battlefield told a very different story than the Tiananmen Square brochure. Even China's loyal wingman drones and robo-dogs, also part of the show, remain untested in real combat. Xi's military showcase may dazzle the crowds, but anyone with real strategic insight knows credibility isn't built in parades, it's earned on the battlefield. And China's men and machines haven't fought one in 2 generations. Arjun Samar Mahendran for NDTV World.
All right, let's get in General Sanjay Verma to talk more on this. He joins us on the broadcast. General Verma, now we've been talking about the weapons that were on display. They matter to us because at some point of time they're going to land in Pakistani hands. Maybe the watered down versions, maybe in about 2 to 5 years. But I want to first understand from you, you saw the weaponry that was on display. What were your initial thoughts? Were you impressed? Or again, were you also wondering how much of this is actually going to work out on the battlefield? Like in Operation Sindoor, we found out they were not good enough.
Very good afternoon, Gauri. I think the introduction which you gave, highlighting the key 5 takeaways, are very important. And whether it is, reshaping or re-gearing up of how China is equipping its arsenal. And the question which comes to mind is, how battle readiness are they? I think there are the takeaways. Besides, I'll discuss how we can look at the battle readiness. But first and most important is that the showcasing of its military power on the occasion of the 80th anniversary, look at the timing. The timing was very critical. And in the presence of, not only 25 to 26 world leaders, but along with North Korea, Kim, and Russia, Putin, this was something which is actually more, it sends a loud message. Whether the weapon may deliver or no, this sort of a combination has more to say than what it actually conveys. Coming on to your straight question, whether they will be able to deliver or prove their battle worthiness when they are actually tested and trial and used. Let me first start by saying that some of them were actually like right from the sci-fi Isaac Asimov era, the sort of the J mighty dragon fighter, then the AI powered. They have this vehicle 60-meter underwater drone. I mean, these are something which are actually from scientific fiction. But majority of them, or most of them, are also a build-up on their earlier versions, like the missile, like the one which comes with the Dongfang 5, DF-61. These are 12,000 kilometers air-launched and even submarine-launched. Now, they are all from the era of DF-5. So DF-5C coming in or DF-61 coming in is an improvement in technology, an improvement in the sort of capability, range, lethality, and its capability. So while they were looking at silo-based, now they have looked at air-launched also. And there's another interesting worm killer, Dongfang 26D, which is an IRBM. And so if they are, actually giving a name to it as a worm killer,
General Verma,
that means,
then let me ask you this, that what is it that probably struck out the most for you in terms of weaponry to look out for? Any specific set of weaponry that you think really stood out?
Sure. I think the Chinese are trying to break away from their traditional modes, what you were saying, missiles over carrier strategy. Absolutely. So I think it's a takeaway from what they are seeing at what is going on in the Ukraine war. So a preponderance of missile systems, preponderance of air delivery systems, preponderance of drones. Look at the way they have proliferated drones. The loyal wingman. Yes, it raises question whether loyal wingman will be actually accompanying the fighter jet. I mean, I have a little bit of reservation, but it's a very interesting idea. Similarly, then the other drones which they have come, the robo-wolves. Fine, this technology is possible and is available. So the takeaway from this is that, yes, they are learning to break away from the traditional way they were looking at fighting the battle. They are learning from the Ukraine war. They are gearing up to new technologies. And first, and the most important thing, how they are integrating AI. They have learned that, and in fact, it is more pertinent to the Chinese army, PLA, the decision making. So they are integrating AI into their battle systems. Now, this is a question which remains still unanswered, because compared to the US way, where the delegation of authority to fight a battle, doctrine, change a strategy is a bottoms-up approach.
All right.
Whereas in China, the way they control it, how they can exploit these weapons, that leaves a lot to answer.
General Verma, very quickly, final question, which is that from an America point of view, this entire spectacle had only one audience. That audience was Donald Trump. Now, from an American point of view, what would be that one section or segment of weaponry that you think the Americans would probably be then spending sleepless night over? Or is there any that they would be spending sleepless night over?
I think what is actually pertinent in our context also, the Americans would also like to strengthen their air defense system. If they are looking at IRBM and ICBMs with the range which they are boasting of, I think we need a robust air defense system. And after that, something to counter these, whether it is by means of directed energy weapons or by means of hypersonic missiles. So these will be the two things which the Americans or any other country now needs to strengthen your air defense umbrella so that you can counter before it comes actually onto you. And even if it comes onto you, how do you handle that? That should be the priority.
Really what it is, the countries around the world prepare for two things. I'm putting it simply for all those who are non-military background people like myself, which is you put in money in investing in missiles that ensure that they strike the enemy, ensuring that they go past the air defense system. And at the same time, you put in money in ensuring that you have an air defense system that can take down missiles from the enemy side. So that's essentially how you sort of ensure you spend on both aspects of it, simplifying it for all viewers like me who try and keep defense technology and weaponry as simple as it gets. Thank you so much, General Verma, for joining me on Fault Lines this week. Well, viewers, if you take off your blinkers, you understand that as far as the Chinese weaponry is concerned, it would be in Pakistani hands in the next few years. Maybe not the top of the line one, but watered down versions would most certainly reach the Pakistani army, which tells you which way this battle will shape up going forward. But beyond China's power projection, for India, there are three clear takeaways. First and foremost, 11 out of the 14 countries that share their boundary with China were there. And apart from New Delhi and Bhutan, the third notable absence was of Afghanistan. That's extremely important. Now, second aspect is that the Chinese will mass produce all that was on display. So over the next course of few years, you will see a lot of this weaponry being produced at a very fast pace. And lastly, the focus will be on unmanned vehicles, whether in air or in sea, indicative of where New Delhi needs to focus, build, and ensure it innovates. Well, viewers, on that note, we slip into a quick break. We return with more updates and more stories on the other side. Stay with us. While Xi Jinping hogged all the limelight, the spectacle was also a major milestone for the North Korean dictator, Kim Jong-un. Not in 66 years had the leaders of China, North Korea and Russia, then USSR, had come together. This was more than just a star-studded debut for the North Korean dictator. It ensured the pariah state had been mainstreamed, sharing the stage with the leaders of 24 other countries. This report tells you why the world's third important producer of nuclear weapons is now in the play when it comes to global politics and global political order against Donald Trump.
Wearing his trademark black suit and gold tie, North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un walked to the red-carpeted entrance of the Tiananmen Square, venue of the world's most watched military parade. And as he walked in front of the global media, Kim was part of the troika of Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. This was not just mainstreaming. Suddenly, Kim Jong-un, the dictator of North Korea, was an integral part of a concerted global push against American President Trump, a show of solidarity. The three strong men out to counter the US, Japan, South Korea security cooperation. Beneath the choreographed spectacle, the move allows Pyongyang more leverage against the US in any nuclear negotiations. With the image of China and Russia backing North Korea, Kim may have more elbow room against the US. It could also mean that the Russia-Ukraine war may continue to get more cannon fodder in the form of North Korean troops, some of who have been awarded posthumously by Kim, with Putin's troop having the momentum on the battlefield. Continued support of weapons and men from North Korea could further complicate the matters for Trump. For Trump, at stake is a Nobel Peace Prize. For others, there is a grinding war that must now end after 3.5 years.
All right, now let's tell you exactly why the presence of Kim Jong-un really changes the global political landscape and also what is behind the Chinese-North Korean brotherhood. Let's put that out for you and detail and decode that for you in detail. Now, Kim joins the axis that is challenging the American dominance. North Korea has always been the one standing opposite America, but now there is a proper axis that seems to have come to shape, and North Korea is very much a part of it. And challenging the American dominance means that it allows certain leverage to the dictator. Next up, shares the global power stage with 24 world leaders. This is not just one single bilateral visit. This is a multilateral platform. There are EU countries, there are NATO countries here. Slovakia is a NATO country. And for them to then be part of this spectacle where you have Kim Jong-un as well, essentially mainstreams the pariah leader. He's now in global headlines, global photo ops, and being part of a larger global concerted push. Next up, it trades soldiers for strategic relevance. Now, this is something that we've been saying, that the Russia-Ukraine war now is essentially and increasingly relying on Putin's ability to be able to get more troops from North Korea, to get continued access to Chinese weaponry, some amount of funding that's coming in via the trading mechanism between the two countries that has really increased in the last couple of years, and the drones that came in from Iran, which is the Shahid drones. But the presence of North Korean soldiers, cannon fodder as you would call them, is extremely important and keeps Kim Jong-un in the strategic relevance of this entire relationship. Next up, brotherhood sealed in missiles and optics. Essentially, that's what it is. If you have been able to get one end of the bargain, then you become that much more relevant. Till now, there is a major security threat and remains, as far as North Korea is concerned. That line of access that China had still remains, but it's now not just about China and North Korea having a certain line of access. There is now greater relevance of Kim Jong-un, and that has been the big takeaway for the North Korean dictator from this visit. And lastly, sells loyalty and buys clout. That's the large part of it. It allows, of course, Kim Jong-un to be able to temper down some of the other major domestic criticism that he is facing, with the fact that there is not enough food, there is not enough electricity. All money is diverted towards weapons program. They are one of the largest nuclear weapons manufacturers in the world. All that still remains. But what he does manage to get is more clout. And that is the significant aspect of this entire photo op that resulted in a big push as far as North Korean dictator is concerned. Let's now quickly tell you, in fact, to viewers, if you take off your blinkers and understand what's really happening, one may ask, is the world back to a Cold War era situation? Blocks being made. Except this time it will be China at the center of the alternate world order and not Russia or USSR, or at least that's what Xi Jinping would be trying to do. Well, the Cold War existed because winds of globalization had not swept through most of the communist bloc, which now have experienced the benefits of global trade. China is the world's second largest economy. It has experienced prosperity. But the three autocrats coming together mean one thing for sure, that the threat that the world faces from Pyongyang has only grown. Kim Jong-un now has moved from isolation to alignment very quickly. And with it, the nuclear threat from his country has also climbed manifold. Let's move ahead and tell you the other big story that we're tracking on the show. Jordan's Crown Prince Hussein Abdullah recently declared the revival of the country's national military service. The Crown Prince stressed that Jordanians must be ready to serve and safeguard their country. The announcement came as the country seeks to project a posture of tough policies against Israel in response to the war in Gaza. This is the first time that Jordan has decided to now ensure that military conscription happens after 34 long years. Now, there's been a lot that has changed as far as the Middle East is concerned. That map has been drawn, redrawn, changed, and continues to remain under flux with the war in the Middle East continuing. But this report tells you exactly why Jordan has gone for this big change and why it is important and the security dynamic that is at play for Jordan. Take a look.
A dramatic shift in national policy is unfolding in the heart of the Middle East. Jordan, nearly 34 years after ending compulsory military service, is now reintroducing conscription, a measure stirring deep regional implications. The announcement comes against a backdrop of heightened regional instability, notably provoked by public remarks from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reaffirming his commitment to a greater Israel vision, a statement widely seen as an expansionist threat to neighboring nations. Jordan's Crown Prince Hussein bin Abdullah has declared that young people must be ready to serve the nation and defend it. The new program aims to awaken a renewed sense of national duty. The plan unfolds in phases, starting with 6,000 male recruits born after 2007. Jordan hopes to scale up to accommodate the majority of eligible youth in time. conscripts will face a demanding dual-track regimen, a military training component and a theoretical curriculum led by civilian experts in history, economics and culture. So why this sudden move by Jordan? There could be several reasons. On the eastern border, relentless drug smuggling attempts from Iraq are compounded by Iranian militia infiltration. To the north, the collapse of the Assad regime in Syria has left an unpredictable and volatile security environment. On the western frontier, tensions with Israel are on the rise, fueled by Netanyahu's push for a greater Israel expansion plan. And looming large over all of this, the war in Gaza, just 60 kilometers away, intensifying Jordan's threat perceptions and border anxieties. Although officials publicly reject the notion that conscription is a reaction to Israeli threats, the timing and rollout point to Jordan bracing itself for an extended period of regional volatility. With Vishal, Vivek, Bureau Report, NDTV.
With that, we wrap things up on this edition. Next week, we come back with yet another war, yet another conflict, yet another fault line decoded for you. Thanks so much for watching this edition.